hollow things. That's what you need for the techniques on this DVD. And I'm standing by Equisetum. It's known as tiger's tail in some places. You can see why. And isn't it just magnificent? You can buy this. And this is why you want to go looking. If I cut a piece off right down at the base here and look up the end of that, hollow, hollow, hollow. That means you can put a wire up it and do anything you like with it. Today, I'm going to show you how to use it for netting. Aren't they stunning? These are just picked from the Floral Design Magazine Garden, and they are dahlias. The bulbs came from the Dahlia Society, and so these are the ones that they show. But I'm not interested in showing them. I'm far more interested in showing them off. The problem with great big blooms like this is if you use them in floral foam, they need so much moisture they won't last very long. They actually are too heavy for their stems. So you want to create some sort of a grid that holds their heads up as long as possible so they'll last in the vase for a week. And this is where the wire netting techniques really comes into its own. I have built the wire netting on the outside of the glass, and it just, besides looking really beautiful as it goes up, it was also giving it that wonderful holding pattern. Huge big stems on them. If you don't pick them, they actually do just flop over, but very, very strong stems, well fertilised with the seaweed juice that we make ourselves. If you want the recipe, by the way, for the seaweed juice, go to the blog on Floral Design Magazine and you'll get it there free. So there's the structure, a simple wire netting shape. The reed, Equisetum, and I picked it to go with the dahlias because it is also big and bulky, which means it's in scale. If I'd used a fine little delicate reed, it wouldn't have gone with the scale of those great big blooms. If I'd wanted to, it will stand by itself. And that, of course, is because it's fully wired. Every single one of those stems has got wire inside them. And of course this gives more possibilities for you because you can scrunch this up. You can make it any shape you feel like making, and it can be free form with all sorts of cool things in it. Things you're going to need: Equisetum, or a large hollow stemmed reed or grass, and heavy gauge wire. The reason it's heavy is because the grass is heavy. If this was lighter that you're using, you would use lighter gauge. And these are tin snips, but they're also incredibly effective wire cutters, which you require with this heavy gauge wire. I've put there a picture of wire netting. It's by studying this picture that you actually find out how to make wire netting. You'll see that there are two pieces of wire that come together, they twist 2 or 3 times, and then they part again, and that's all you have to remember. Take the wire and put it up the stem. Now Equisetum has got these little pieces here that actually aren't hollow, but it's very, very easy to push it straight through those. So the wire is going right up. I'm going to take this big one and show you what to do if your wire's too short. So I'm going to say that the wire's going to go possibly to there. We'll pop it in. And I need another piece of wire. Obviously can't put it in there because it won't move up. So you just make a little split in the plant material and carry on up for the next length. And that's how you end up wiring the entire stem. Do this to all of them, and you're going to need pairs. And for this design here, I used 7 pairs, so that is 14 pieces of Equisetum. The reason I've started with this one, even though it looks really complicated, is because it's bigger Therefore, you can have a go with the techniques on a big scale, which doesn't mean it's all fiddly for you. The equisetum, as it dries, because it's obviously out of water, will turn a beautiful brown. You cannot do this if it was already dry because it would split on all of those joints. It's already quite a tough thing anyway. Start with middle two and you twist them around each other. Because it's tough wire, because they're big stalks, done. You lay it down on your table. You just started your first piece of wire netting. Do exactly the same with all of the pairs. Wire netting will have normally 3 twists, but with something this big, only 2 really is all you need. But you will know from the plant material you're using. Twist. This mesh, when we start, is 2-dimensional. We turn it into a 3-dimensional shape, but the netting itself is still 2-dimensional. It's not coming out this way at all. I've actually made it into that cylinder shape, so it makes it nice and easy for you to start with. Okay, so there we are, and now we're going to put them so they overlap. And that tells you what to do next. What you're going to do now is twist where they overlap. So the left hand of one twists over the right hand of the other one. So there they are there, because I've laid them down like that. So now we take these and we twist them around each other twice and lay them flat. Alright, then we're doing the same with this one. If you want it even like this, do it at the same level, which means here. Doing this upside down, but I think I can manage. Okay, so the left hand talks to the right hand. There they are there. Want it in line and bend it. And can you see what's happening? We're starting to get your wire netting shape. These pieces are actually these pieces at the bottom of the vase. That's the starting points. So the more even you have those along here, the neater it will be. If you're not a neat person, don't do it that way. So now we're going to take them again. We're going to take where they meet. You can see they're naturally crossing. So these two go together, and there it is. There's the classic diamond shape of wire netting. And round we go. And twist it twice. Wire, holding it exactly where we want it. What's cool about working on this big scale, of course, is that you can do it really, really fast. Don't worry at the moment about that wire netting showing, it will disappear. Now you can see when I've got to the end here, I've got nothing here to twist it. So I've got to add another pair here. If I add another pair here, the same thing will happen. The pair twists over itself. You can see that this one here has run out. To add another piece, I push the wire down into it. And then I push the wire down into the end. Okay, and so then that's ready to go. So I've extended them out so that you can keep going out and out and out. Now I'll show you how to do another piece on the end of here. Lay them down. Where it joins, that side, these are the two that get twisted. 1, 2. You can see now it's joining, it's moving over to here. So now this is the one that gets twisted and around to there. Now the wires come off there, so another piece of equisetum goes on. Okay, now you can see these two are joining over each other, so twist around here. It's not going to go anywhere, is it? You've made wire netting. You've made equisetum netting. So when we put the container into it and come around like this, now it's just a case of spreading these out. You could put a rubber bander on the base just to help you out to get started. And then you're carrying on now the end, joining the end that was that side. Where they touch, you twist them. I'll show you a nice easy one. You see those two are touching, so that's where you twist. These two are touching, so you twist those ones. And you build it up. You just keep on adding more and more and more and building it up till you've got where you want it to be. Put it back on the jar. And you can see I just carried on building up. Let's see if I can find a join here for you. That's where one finished. And it was there. There's no glue. This is all just the wire on the inside holding them in place there. Some of the wire was sticking out, so out came the tin snips. Cut out any wire that's sticking out at all, and then this is still very mobile. I can move this because it's still wire. I can move this. I could curl it. I could have it coming out this way. It is everything. Every part of it you can now move because of that wire in it. So that's the technique. Wired equisetum netting. Add test tubes to the bottom that you can wire in place, so this will take the stems of the calla lilies and then thread the dahlias down through into the test tubes or straight into the vase, and you have a wonderful arrangement. This one is more of a grain shape than a seed head and is quite common, I'm sure, all around the world, but it does have that same secret. I'll cut a piece and I'll show you. Hollow, magnificent, make sure it's green. When you're working with finer reeds, you're going to need finer wire, but it can't be too fine. I've got a selection here to show you of the different wires, and they're called gauges. As you go higher in gauge, the wire gets thinner. For finer reeds, you need finer wire. However, if you go too fine, such as this one here, it is too bendy. You actually can't force it through the stem. The other thing is when you're looking for your reeds, see how many nodes they've got on them. That's a node there, because each node is quite dense, and to be able to push the wire through that node can be quite hard. So if you're looking for grass that's hollow, try and find ones that have got a long distance between those nodes. Find wire that is as straight as you can possibly make it, because any kink in it will force the wire out of the reed. So you just put it through just like this. Hold your elbows close to your chest, it's easier, and then just push it through as you go. If you have any trouble at all with it, just try it again and push it up. Now I've already done some of them here. If you find this is impossible to do, it's really easier to not use that reed. This is supposed to be fun, it's not supposed to be a bore. So there, if you find that that's too difficult, keep looking for something that is more hollow. For this design, you need to build something to place your cone on. Now these are just old DVD cases, and this is the shape I want. I'm not going to use this in the design, but it's going to be a wonderful shape for me. So that goes on top upside down. In this design we're going to start here and move it down this way, so we end up with a beautiful bowl shape. You'll need 8 pieces of reed, still in pairs, and you can see the wire's only gone up to that node there, so I'm well aware that I'm going to run out of wire. And take them in the middle. Now I'm going to put them that way because it's eventually going to go like this, and I want these seed heads as part of the design. So when I've got it to there, I know that I've got wire there and there, and just like we did before, you're going to twist it around itself once, twice, and that's the beginning of your wire netting, which we're starting this time in the middle. So it gets a little bit awkward to start with. If it helps, you could always sellotape them to the piece here and then take the sellotape off later. And just twist it. When I put these on like this now, and over each other like this, you can see I'm going to start to get my wire netting shape. But I'm just going to sellotape it ever so temporarily. There, that's the first one going down. Here's the second one, and I'm going to put the join of the second one on this side. So on this side, I'm making that first little diamond shape in the middle. So that's the third side, and the final piece will be my fourth side. You end up with this bewildering tangle here. Where they cross is where you are going to twist them. So for these two here, that one is crossing with that one. So I've identified those ones. So I can take off my piece of sellotape here and twist it. Just hold it there for a minute. Another piece of sellotape. What would we do without our sellotape? Then I come around to this one. Sellotape there, and we go that one is crossing over that one. So this is where we're going to twist it. Doesn't feel as if there's wire on that, so we'll wire that in a minute and sellotape it down. Moving around, you can see why I've got such a tall thing to hold it on, because I want these grasses to go down. So we twist those ones. We've got the first 4 of those ones done. Now here are the 4 that were left in the middle there, and I'm just grouping them up like that. Now I want this to sit flat when I turn it over the other way, so I'm going to incorporate these going down to there and a twist, and they now are going to become the next part of the wire netting. And around to here to these 2, twist them and pull them down again. Right, so I've actually added more pieces into my wire netting. And at this stage you can decide you can be very formal and like manufactured wire netting, or you can just twist them as they are beside each other. Okay, so that's going to make it nice and flat underneath there. I'll cut off these little bits that are just bits of the grass. See how that's worked. So these 2 here would like to talk to each other, so they're going to get twisted around each other. Don't worry if the reed splits there. I'm going to thread another piece onto that piece of wire. When there's another one on that piece of wire, obviously that's going to be twisted there. Come around this way. That's a bit of grass. And twist these 2 together. So as you're going down, you're just going to twist them. Now, just as you need to introduce more because you've either run out or they've broken off, I'm going to cut this and push it up to there and then cut that one off, and so then I've got more to work on there. So from this point it's very organic, just twisting as you see where they want to touch each other, where they don't want to touch each other, add another piece in. So you can see I've sort of done it quite randomly, just as they're touching each other right the way around, and I'm just taking off the sellotape. I can lift it off its mould, and there is the beginning of our bowl. Because it's all wired, you can now make it any shape you like, and I want mine just to be a little bit tighter. So I'm just going to move those bits of wire in. It's a very, very light construction, so anything that's holding it down has to be taken away, which means heavy seed heads. It's got to be as light as a summer's day. It has to be whimsical and ethereal and something that's just got a little bit of magic in it. Now this is all going to dry into a golden colour, so what I'm wanting to do is add more of these seed heads just sitting inside there. But now that you've got that shape, you can really do weaving with it, any technique that you like that's actually going to make it even more interesting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these seed heads, but I'm going to make them a lot shorter. Light the bit of grass on. I know that it's going to make the most beautiful golden colour, and I'm just weaving them in so that they will stay there. They're all going to shrink, of course. So if you've got a little bit of cold glue, just a little spot of cold glue if you're worried about them pulling out. I'm not too worried actually, because just a quick little weave in and out and they're sitting there in these spots. This is called a vegetative design, which means as nature would find it. It's such a huge contrast to formal designs, and it's quite a refreshing little change if you've got a summer wedding, or a summer wedding outside in a garden or in a meadow. These are just such lovely things to do. You could have it as a coffee table design in midsummer. You could put a bowl of water in there with a beautiful series of tiny little flowers. The key is anything you put in there, it has to be as light as the construction is, not just physically so it stays in place, but also then it keeps within the feeling of this lovely piece. And I'm going to pop out to the garden and find the smallest little interesting things to put into test tubes to add to that. A vegetative container, all ready for you to add your own little meadow. I have got a glass tray and also some shot glasses. I've picked one that's green and one that's brown because then that will go with it. So this just means it's going to be easy to carry about. If you're carrying it away somewhere as a gift, you could actually hot glue this onto that plate. Did you notice how it just naturally decided where it wanted to sit? Don't force it, it's got its own natural balance, so that's where it's going to be. And I filled up the shot glasses with water. I've picked the colours so that they just totally disappear within the design, but it also adds some water to the flowers. Now, out getting the flowers, I went for some of the weeds that are in our garden, but also some of the things at this time of the year are going to seed. So we've got some rocket out of the vegetable garden, which is this lovely little yellow one here, some aquilegia around the corner, aquilegia seeds, and this little purple flower that self-seeds. We don't want too much fuss. I've even got a dandelion here. I don't want it too tall. So just cutting the pieces and popping them in. That's what I mean. Fantastic for a summer wedding. Very fashionable having a wedding out in the grass. This is filling in the middle, and you can see it's going to be a round shape with all these interesting things. These sort of flowers don't last very long, but you wouldn't expect them to. Their job in nature is just to get the seeds, and there's the seed of the rocket. Facing in all directions. Mixing them up, being very casual. This is actually also how the early American settlers from England designed their flowers. They just went out into the meadows, picked something they thought was pretty, brought it inside. Of course they didn't make the flash wire netting to go with it. Purple and yellow, complementary colours. Just twirl it around for you. See, very, very grassy. Those shot glasses are starting to disappear a little bit. And you can see why it wasn't hugely important how formal you were with your wire netting. All that work to make it all formal, and then it completely disappears as becoming part of the grass underneath. Seeds, look at them. Fabulous. Aquilegia. And the Aquilegia, wonderful seed heads. The bold form of those seed heads just gives another contrast, another form, just like these ones do. Are you there? Are you in summer? Are you sitting somewhere in a meadow? Because I think that's all we need. And there you have it in the summertime. This netting is made from things that you'll find in a good floral wholesaler. It's paper covered wire. It was originally made to hold up the grapevines in Germany. A florist spied it, and since then it has become an essential part of any toolkit for a florist. You can get it in lots of colours, and it is just paper that is covering wire. That means it's wonderful for netting. Being thicker, it's not going to be as graceful as the delicate design we've just done, so scale your flowers and things in proportion. You're also going to need a balloon, and exactly the same method applies. Take a length of string. I like to start with 8 because 8 to me gets you started on the grid, on the netting. And I'll do it backwards. So take 2, twist them together. This time with 3 twists. And because of that wire inside that paper, it holds nicely. And do it with a second one. So you lay them down so they are side by side, and just like the other ones, same technique. Where they cross is where you twist to join them together. So you're twisting the right of one side with the left of the other pair. I'll put my hand on there and give it a twist. 1, 2, 3. And there is the beginning of the netting. So now we take another pair, open them out, and where they connect is where you twist. One, 2, 3. And you're going to repeat this as often as you want the width of your netting to be. You can see it's quite different from the grasses one. It's very, very bold, and it's very easy to make it even. Alright, so I'm going to presume you now know how to do it. You're going to do another one here and another one here. So I'll show you one that I prepared earlier. It's a little bigger. And there it is. It's where I started. And at this point you go, wow, how did it actually work? But just keep remembering you add another pair. Where it joins you do it, and you just go all the way down, joining the ones that are crossing with each other. This sort of reminds me of the 60s where we used to have shawls were sort of made like that. It will naturally go into a triangle shape, and down here you can see I ran out of the wire and I purposely left it like that so you can see how I join the next one on. And it's really simple. You just twist it. 1, 2, 3, and there's the next join. And of course when I have finished I will tidy those up and cut them off neatly. So here's the other side of that needing to be joined. So there's 3 of them there. 1, 2, 3. And there's the join ready to go. You can see these two now want to be joined together. I've blown up a balloon. I've got it so that when I do this and this, they meet. And that means I can now carry on with the netting where they meet, because it becomes just more netting the same. So now, that's one side, that's the other, put them together, and where they join, there it is where I'm going to twist it together. And that's completed the circle. So when these come out now this way, you can see it again. Those two are together. So now I'm building the netting into this three-dimensional shape now. This is why you keep your bits of wire short. You don't want this enormous tangle. And see how now we've got this seamless circle of netting that you would never get if you just bought it and had to use wire on it. This is the advantage of making it yourself. And so this one now goes with that one. I'm going to work all the way down. I hope I've got you excited now with this technique, because it is so versatile, and just showing you this way of doing it is like, oh wow, what shape are you going to do? You could do a cylinder. The reason I'm using a balloon and not a solid sphere is I want to pop it at the end, and so that comes out. I'm going to push the balloon up now. I'm going to work these ones so that they all join into here, and that's going to be my base. I'm just going to spend a little bit of time twisting to get these all neatly in place but still in that netting shape. So that one now gets twisted around this one and finished off. This one gets twisted around this one and finish off. And because I'm using that balloon shape, it's helping me pull it down into the curve that I want, rather than having still going straight up. It's tightening the netting on this side. So these are much smaller pieces. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just turning it around and doing the next one in. So that is now complete, and really all I did was just go smaller and smaller and smaller and start hooking them over one to the other side until it ended up in this little finished piece at the bottom. Now we'll come to the top. You'll see I've then carried on, just going round, just exactly the same as you've been doing before, all the way up till I got back to here, and I thought, okay, I'm going to have to start making a decision here. It actually could look very arty. If you like modern art, abstract design, you'll say, I love all those pieces coming out like that. You might say it looks a bit like a fishing buoy. I don't like it at all. or you can see all sorts of creative possibilities of how to finish it off. But one decision you have to make is, what are you going to do about what goes inside? So that when you get to the point of putting something inside, you've still got room to put it in. I've decided that I'm going to put a square glass vase inside, so I'm going to pop the balloon. There's the shape. I mean, as an art piece, it reminds me of an eel catcher from the Maori people of ancient times in New Zealand. It is a piece of artwork, really, just sitting like that. So, but I am going to open it up, because this is about floral art, isn't it? And you have got that beautiful shape. Have I left enough room to put this in? As I was working, getting further, closer and closer to the end of the balloon, I was making them much, much tighter as I was going through. There's the bottom, so that's going on the bottom. But I could put my vase any way I wanted. It could be this way, so that I poke the flowers through the actual grid. I'm going to put it this way. You could also use flower tubes and put them anywhere you felt like putting them. And of course that means that that bottom piece that I made, where I did all the joining, is completely not going to be seen, and all this beautiful even netting is. So I really like it like that. But I am going to give you an alternative. You can carry on still making smaller and smaller and smaller wire netting simply by, here's a piece here to show you. So you take those two pieces and put them together smaller, those two pieces together, put them together smaller. Or you could plait the top into a really cool look, because remember, with that wire you can actually just turn these round. You take 3 pieces, so that's two and two to make my 3, and you simply go over and around like this, and as you go pick up a next couple and include them in the plait. So I mean, we really are talking very creative art here as a way to finish off your piece, your top. And this is of course the magic, the total magic of making your own beautiful containers like this, is that this is like something nobody else will ever have seen, whether this is in your shop or in a competition or simply in your home. It is something new and different, and you made it. You see, so what I'm doing is, as I'm plaiting, I'm just bringing in a new piece. See that one there? So I'm just bringing in a new piece as I go round. And this is a wonderful way to finish off that top. If you're clever enough, you might be able to do a 4 plait. You also notice I'm going down as I go, so that it will take me to the bottom of the container and give me an interesting edge on it. Now, I completely invented this technique, so you are definitely the first people in the world to see it. And if you use it, you'll be the second person in the world who knows how to do it. My influence is from the days long ago when we used to make baskets. We always had lots of these pieces at the top that we had to get rid of in some way. And so we'd get rid of them by having that basket weave plait on the top. And I really am randomly adding those extra pieces to whichever bundle looks as if it needs more pieces added to it. It's not a formula, it's just say, well, here comes another one that needs to be added. And with the dahlias out in the garden, you know, dahlias are an art form in their own right. And having one astonishingly beautiful dahlia sitting there, in there, with this lovely self-made container around it. It's just yummy. Okay, so to finish off, just take one of them, the longest one, and bind it. That will hold them all in place. That can come around here. Tidy these up so that they're all curving back in, because you want them to curve back into the occasion. And there it is. Extremely creative. Beautiful art piece. Your own wire netting. Like nothing else in the world. Something to be really proud of. So I'm going to find my best dahlia to put in there and go and put it on my coffee table. By now you'll be getting really familiar with the technique, so I'm just going to show you how to finish off the edges. If you're looking for a beautiful piece of wire netting with gorgeous, gorgeous straight edges, this is the way to do it. And of course at the same time we're using another sort of wire and a different sort of idea. So for this one you're going to need some beads of some sort. Because I'm thinking wedding in this case, I've gone for the pearl coloured beads, and some decorative wire. It comes in this length or in a reel. I prefer it in having it in lengths because it is easier to cut it. Now if you have a length that big, you're going to get an amazing tangle unless you want something that big. So first thing I did was take some pieces and cut them. I've used 7 pieces of wire for this one. This wire comes in all sorts of amazing colours, which is absolutely brilliant if you are doing wedding flowers or party flowers or for a special occasion. Okay, in the familiar way, start with 2 and push them 3 times together. If you've been doing this DVD step by step, each lesson, you should be able to do this in your sleep by now. And there's the 7th one that you'll put there. Okay, so this time round we're going to do the 2 that cross, which is here and here, and cross them and twist them. Out of the tangle there. Okay, I'm doing this much longer than the other one just so you can see the idea. Now you take the bead and the 2 you've just twisted, put the bead through the 2 of them. Put the bead right up to where you did your twist of wiring, and then open it back up again. So you can see what's going to happen. The bead is now the center point. Besides hiding the wiring, it's giving this wonderful accent as you go through. So now take another pair, put it beside them where they meet. In this case I'm trying to make them even, so I'm trying to do it so it's equidistant, exactly the same as the other one, to there. Take the bead, take the 2 you've just twisted, thread it on, so you're threading both of those pieces of wire through, bring it up and then open it. Same again, wide as you want to do it. Keep everything very, very controlled and in the right place so that you don't get this confusion going on. Just keep it all controlled. As I said, after a while you'll be able to do this while you're watching television, but while you're learning, keep everything beautifully straight. Right, so that's the same step 3 times. Right, so we now got 7 pieces of wire there. Now, well, what are we going to do with this one here? Because it's not going to have a partner. So you bring it past that row, so it becomes the first on the next row, and that's how you're going to get your lovely straight edge. Just straight past that one, and when you get to here, twist it, put the bead on it, bring the bead up to the wiring, and there's your second row started. So now these two go together, put on the bead, and you've got your next row. These two go together, put on the bead, then you end up on this side with one spare. So because that one's spare, you're going to do exactly the same as you did on that side on this side. But I better put the bead on so you can actually see. Alright, so that's on its own, so it's going to go right past that row, here it is, and twist it here. So it becomes the first of the next row. And that's how you make it lovely and long. So let's go back to the one that I made finer, and you can now understand how it worked. There's the 7 pieces. This one had nowhere to go, so it jumped a line and went down to that one. This one had nowhere to go, nothing to attach to, so it jumped a line and went down to that one. And carry on with this, putting pearls, beads, buttons on every intersection till you've got the length you want. There it is, finished. And doesn't it look pretty? I mean, this is wedding material. But you're going to say, alright, I've got this beautiful piece of wire netting, my own. What am I going to do with it? Here's 3 suggestions. The first one is, it's a lovely way to zhuzh up a candle, because you can put it around the candle and it's an instant wedding table centerpiece. You can also use double-sided sellotape on a cylinder and have it running down the length of the cylinder like that, and of course with double-sided sellotape it's going to be flat against it, and that's going to make this very, very beautiful little extra piece to a glass container that you then of course have the flowers coming out of. I'm going to do it with a wine glass, and the wine glass because it's a lovely little easy thing to do as a table setting, one by each person's placing. Out comes the double-sided sellotape. So run the sellotape down the glass. This is just to hold it in place until you get yourself organised. And you're going to need that. You might actually need a rubber band as well, because it's going to go around like this. And you're going to say, well, what's going to happen when you get to this end piece? And this is when you might need a rubber band to help you out, because we're going to thread these back over each other. So that sits like that. So these two here are going to thread inside the bead there. Alright, so I'm going to just twist these round each other in a temporary fashion. I'll untwist them as I work. Push this down onto this tape. And that's where my last one was, and so these get threaded down through here. Put the other one through as well. Plan them that will take 4 pieces of your wire just for this ending here. Right through like that. And try to make it an invisible little join at this point. I mean, as much as you can. Obviously it is a mechanic, so I'm putting it underneath the wire of the other one. Pull it tight, twist it on itself. You can see I went underneath it. And there's your first one done. So now this one here, that one there, follows the line and goes into that one. And then I can unpick these, just untwist each one as you go and wire them through all the way down. So I'm going to sit and do that from the front because it's going to be easier for me. And keeping this join here as neat as I possibly can as I go around. So a real close up there, you can see the join. It's not too bad at all, just a few little wiggly bits there. But from the point of view of looking at it in detail, I've also now taken off the double-sided sellotape because it's just going to sit there on its own, which means that after the wedding, the event, you've got these to reuse anytime you want for any event. You can hire them out, you can give them away, they can become favours. I'm sure every little girl would decide that that would be a very, very cool, rather large necklace. And this is a fantastic way to create a big effect on a very, very small budget, because all you need then is one thing in the top. I've picked a yellow dahlia because they're in season obviously, and a little bit of water in the glass. Cut the dahlia to the length so it sits on the top, and there it is. A very, very cool budget style design where you've juiced up a very cheap wine glass and used one flower. It would look very cool with gerbras, big chrysanthemums, or you might want to put a little posy, a handmade posy to put into each one. The colour of the flower could be the colour of the bridesmaids' dresses. Effective, simple, and most importantly, unique to you. You've heard of crazy paving, maybe. Well, this I would call crazy netting. This is netting where you are going to disguise it again, the wiring in the reed, but then you're going to add all sorts of interesting things to it. The reed I'm going to use is hollow inside, but the disadvantage it has is that it has these nodes, and these nodes you cannot get wire through. So as with anything in nature, don't fight it. Turn that into advantage. These are bone beads, all sorts of variety, which of course creates all sorts of fun in a piece of netting that is bespoke. So I'm going to find the part of the reed that is hollow and just cut off that section. Cut it to the node. Check and see if the next one's hollow. It is. Choose a length, any length, and cut all your reeds to that length. This time I'm using 26 gauge wire, and the reason it's so fine is because it doesn't really need to hold anything up, and it has to go through the reeds. You can see they're starting to yellow already. Picked them a couple of days ago. Same method. 1, 2, 3, just to start you off. This is forest wire, but it came out already covered with paper just to give it the green look, but any wire will do because you're going to see very, very little of it. I mean, if I had some that was in these brown colours, I would be using that. Okay, so I'm working my way this time, and this time we're going to cover the wire with the reeds. So pop one up each one. This is an excellent idea if you're wanting to build a screen of some sort, because it is by adding interest before you put the flowers on with the screen. Using up any wire that you've got. Okay, so there we've got the beginning of the wire netting. You can see these two want to come together here. Those two want to come together there. And now buttons or beads. So I'm going to pick a bead. I'm going to thread it up where the two meet. So a little twist just to keep everything in place. Thread the bead on both of them, just exactly like we did the other one with the pearl beads. This is simply that you are covering the wire first with the reeds. Pull it down so it's nice and tight and then give it a twist. If you were using a button with two holes, you would put that wire one through each hole. And twist this one just to keep it all tidy and in place. See why those reeds have got to be the same length? If they're not, it's really quite difficult to get anything moving. And a different bead. And now thread wire again. Obviously these side ones are either waiting for you to make it finish it, or I'm going to add more and more and more depending on how wide you make it. Well, to make it at the moment I'm just showing you the method. And it can be quite wide, look at that. You can make very, very wide wire netting, which means it's pretty fast. So carry on, putting on the reed. Just doing a couple of rows for you, pushing that right up, and so pushing that right up. The number of turns that you put into the wire is going to be the amount of space that you have got between the bead and the wire. So less turns, less wire exposed. Two here, one twist, and put in another bead. This time I've got a little fish. And we're ready for the next one. Okay, so there's your basic beginning. As I said, you add another two here and can bring them all the way down, just like you've been doing for the rest of the lessons. If you are wanting to make the straight edges, as we did in the lesson before, these two are obviously going to be the straight edges. So for those, you're going to have to cut your reed to that length, from there to there or so. Start where there isn't a node, check it's hollow, and it's going to have to travel from there to there, so that's where we cut it. And you thread it on exactly the same way till we get to there, and that's where you put your bead, and that will give you a lovely straight edge, particularly if you wanted to use this as a screen. A beautiful moving screen, and these bits at the top, it's a piece of dowel. You put the dowel along here, one either side, and just a really nice neat little twist there, and cut it off, and you will have it on a piece of dowel to hang as a lovely screen. I have here an embroidery hoop. It is made of bamboo of some sort, and of course it's the same colour as the rest of the pieces. So I'm actually going to put my piece inside the embroidery hoop. These will expand because it is netting, see? Wide as you want it, or as narrow as you want it. And it will be like that until you've secured it in some way. So my embroidery hoop is going to go there. So I know I don't want it any wider, and I also don't need to put those extra pieces on the edge because the embroidery hoop's going to do it for me. So I've almost done. I don't need that one there as well. and I'm going to attach these one either side of the embroidery hoop. I have to work longer than my wire is, so I'll just show you how to join the wire. If you also need to go longer than your wire, make a loop in the wire and a loop in this wire, put the two loops together, squeeze them down tight and twist them. Pliers is probably the best job here for this rather than fingers, especially if you've got heavier gauge wire. Now there's your join. So it means when I add the next piece of straw or reed, down it goes into here. It's completely covered that join, and yet I've got another long piece of wire. So I've been working around the frame. You can see now I'm starting to push things in and out for the frame itself. And have a close look up the top here and you'll see those very top wires I have put around the frame and just a temporary little hold on them so that they will sit there for me while I work out the other ones. As we're now getting onto the edges, the standard size that I cut for the grass won't work. They have to be shorter in quite a few cases. So from this point on, you're cutting each individual one for the length that you need it to be to go into that gap. I've put one wire going up this way and one wire going down that way. You want the wire so it travels across the side of the embroidery frame. Whether up nor down, it doesn't matter. If you have never seen an embroidery frame before, it has on it a wonderful little mechanism that is used for tightening one frame onto the other. It's used to stretch the fabric over the frame while people are embroidering on it, but it also is a very cool frame for floral design. Pop it while it's open and stretched like that over the top of all the wires. If you don't trust the embroidered frame mechanism to hold the wires in place, you can put a little spot of glue, hot glue, on each of these wires first. I want that screw to be on the top so that I can use it to hang. And you see, I'm just loosening this off so it will slide down, and then you just screw it. And as it screws it, it tightens that frame, the outside frame, onto the inside frame so that it will sit there. And then all you have to do, of course, is cut those bits of wire off. The hydrangea is perfect for this because when you put it up to here, it looks like little butterflies. To use the cold glue, you need to leave it for a couple of minutes to set. So you put the glue on the stem. That also helps the water that's already in the flower stay in the flower for as long as possible. Sit it down like that on there. The reason I'm doing it while it's on the wall is because if you're doing something that is meant to be hanging and you're doing it flat, horizontal on a table, you don't get the feel for how the design is going to look. So when you hold it up, you go, oh, I should have put something there. So if you are designing for the wall, do it on the wall. So there it is, delicate, easy really, didn't take long to do, but when we take it off here and you see it just hanging in space somewhere so it can actually turn, I'll put some on the back as well, you go, wow, what a cool idea to hang on a porch, to welcome people, in an open window, somewhere where it can catch the breeze and twirl around. Just be a lovely piece of floral art to welcome people if they're coming for lunch, afternoon tea, or in the window of your shop. This lesson is an accumulation of all the things that you've learned in the last 5 lessons, because it's going to be freeform, and it has been inspired by David Ragg. Check it out, Google David Ragg, 2 G's. We're going to start this time by making the wire netting in the middle. It's freeform. We are not keeping it even at all. We're working from the middle, so 3 twirls, and do it several times. So they're like big spider webs, and then random, anywhere, take one of them and just spiral it onto the other one. And now random again, spiral it onto the other one. This is random because you're building now in 3D, and anywhere it touches, just create another twist in it. You can see how immediately it's going into 3D sort of a shape here. This is how you add a piece. You just round around twice and it's added. The bigger the holes, the more flimsy it's going to be. So make your holes smaller if you've got fine wire, so that it's really holding itself up. And also the amount of wire you've got will determine the amount of strength you have. So wider apart is weaker, closer together is stronger, bigger wire, fatter wire, heavier gauge wire is stronger, thinner wire is weaker. There's my bad hair day wire netting. Just a few little techniques that are David Ragg techniques. As you finish or join them on, just have the endings obvious and up in the air. It adds to the ethereal, airy nature, and of course because you're enclosing all that space, it's very, very light. So we're going to wire 5 test tubes. Put the pliers on, grip it with the pliers, and then just turn it once. To wire them in, just open the legs, and I'm going to have them all sloping. I'm going to have 5 around here, all sloping into the centre. So I'm finding little spots for them. They're going to have most of their weight onto the floor, I guess it is, or the surface that they end up, and just a little slant inwards. Once again with your pliers or with your hands, tighten them on to a piece of the wire. Now if you want to wire a second time, you can see I probably wire that one around there as well, so that when I lift it up, my little test tube stays in place. I've chosen things that are still a contrast of form, which is flat and dull, long and thin, fluffy and light and airy of a different colour. Complementary colours, of course. So just the tiniest piece, floret of hydrangea. They're all sloping in towards the middle. A hydrangea in each one. These are the blades from the Spraxia. Anything will do, because now the different parts of the arrangement are going to start talking to each other, as that's why we've got those test tubes on a slant. Alright, so you can see that we're starting now to get this coming up towards the middle. Then we're going to add 1 lavender to each one, slightly higher than the hydrangea. Then we have the rocket flower, we'll have that slightly higher. What's wonderful about this design, of course, is that it's showing off your wonderful wire netting, but at the same time it's very, very light and dainty. And to finish it off, asparagus fern. Guessed it, 1 in each. And I am going to trim a little bit of that asparagus fern, because it is making that middle just a little bit too messy. So as you go around, just the pieces that you think are making something messy rather than giving shelter. All finished, haircut. Beautiful piece of modern flower arranging, floral design. Your own self-made knitting. Vegetative, dainty, beautiful for summer, and it doesn't take many flowers.